Welcome to the Project Management Happy Hour. Our aim is to share frank and honest discussion about real-world issues in project management, but do it in a way that's not too dry, though it might get a bit salty sometimes. Burnout at work, when a $500,000 a year job just is not worth it. All right, Kate, we've been looking forward to this one. Maybe you more than me, but I've been looking forward to this episode for a little while.
I am so excited about this episode. I am excited for all of you to meet Norlander, and I'm excited to share about a burnout that I went through last year that I don't know if many of you know. And I can't wait for you to get to know Norlander. So with that, I just want to get us into it. It's such a good episode.
Let's go.
Norlander Wilson is an experimental psychologist by trade and an orbit disruptor by calling. She is the founder and CEO of Becoma, an operational strategy firm that helps leaders, creatives, and organizations move from survival mode into clearer systems and healthier energy.
Through her work, Norlander blends psychology, strategy, and systems design to challenge the patterns that keep people stuck and to create ways of working that don't require self-sacrifice. She's also the host of the She Don't Work Like That No More, a podcast where she unpacks wounded leadership patterns and reimagines what it means to build, lead, and live without breaking yourself in the process. Welcome to the show, Norlander.
Thank you.
Now, before we jump in, there's a question I'd like to ask, and I love to ask all of our guests this question, and it's this: what is the most valuable business lesson that you had to learn the hard way?
Ooh. Since we're talking about burnout, I am just going to ground us in thinking about how you bring yourself into leadership, like unpacking things before you come into leadership positions, meaning, and I'll tell this story a little bit later, it's like, for me, I realized later on as a business owner, as someone who's been in the C-suite, right, that I brought a lot of trauma with me, right? And I did not unpack that before leading teams, leading people, having my own business. And that really created codependencies in relationships. So I think that is the hardest lesson that I had to learn, which is really being instructive with myself about how I unpack my own traumas before I begin to lead teams.
Wow, that speaks to a lot of self-awareness there.
Yeah, I mean, it's been 2 to 3 years of like unpacking with my therapist. And I tell you,
I get it.
It's been a lot of hard work.
I get it. Yeah, it's good. Yes, I'm excited to dive into this topic today. And I'm excited to have Norlander on the podcast because of the content that you were posting about burnout. I just felt you knew what to talk about. And I went through a burnout in 2024. And I haven't talked about this on the podcast yet. In June and July of 2024, I was so burned out. I was on a medical leave. I was just miserable. I was crying every day. I was waking up. I didn't want to go to work. I felt like everything I did at work, people were just like, I just felt like I could not win. And I had big Sunday scaries and like... Really, the thing that finally made me realize that I was in burnout is that my eating habits became bad, is how I'm going to describe them. I'm going to describe it as disordered eating. Rather than like eating food, like protein and carbs and vegetables, I was only eating cookies. The only thing I was eating all day long were cookies. And in particular, they were, if you know those animal cracker cookies called Mother's cookies that are like white and pink, they had a special edition that were mythical creatures. So they were white and purple with sparkly sprinkles on them. And oh God, like that was one of my indicators things were wrong. I was defensive constantly. And so when I saw your content, Norlander, now a year later, having gone through it and really started to come back out on the other side of burnout, I was like, if I was going to talk about burnout on the podcast with anybody, you are the person I would want to talk about it with. You know what you're fucking talking about. Excuse me. You know what you are talking about.
Before I share, Kim, do you have anything you want to share? I'm not sure how this works. So I want to make sure.
Yeah, I've been in that place as well. Not as bad as Kate, But it's, I've had a few times when I just feel locked in. There's no escape. Don't want to go to work. I don't know if they were panic attacks, but man, stomach aches and just feels like the room is spinning and just, I want to be anywhere but where I'm at. I've been through that, man. And it just seems like it takes forever to try and recover from it.
It does. I mean, I'm over a year away from when I quit my job last year, and I still feel like I'm working through it. I don't feel like I'm, if it's sort of like a meter, it's not linear either, but I don't feel totally broke down, but I don't feel 100% all the way back at the same time, if that makes sense. Like I feel more like maybe like 70 to 80%, which I think is still phenomenal, but it does take time to really get all the way back out there to undo all these things that you tell yourself and you get stuck in.
Yeah. So the first thing I want to do is acknowledge, Kate, where you've been, and Kim, where you've been or are, right, in this space. Because me too. So you said your breakdown came in 24, mine's came in 23 at the top of 23. Even though I had been doing this self-awareness work before then, I was still in a performative pattern, which set me, like, I would have those highs and like Kim is talking about. And I'm like, okay, I am functioning this week, right? I am showering, right? I am eating, right? I am doing all these things, but then next week, okay, now I'm just getting out of bed and walking to the computer. We're going to turn on the coffee machine, have the coffee, no breakfast until 2:00.
Yeah.
Eventually, things caught up with me because I was also a part of like being this dumping ground at work, not only physically, but emotionally. And it's like, you're a wall, right? It's like, you go ahead, dump on me. I can take it, but really I can't because I didn't shower today. Really, I can't. I didn't brush my teeth today. Really, I can. I haven't stood for like 8 hours.
Yes.
Yeah. So don't get me started. Like, I don't want to get up on my house. So y'all continue before I bum rush the whole conversation. But yes, I just want to acknowledge that. And I'm so proud of you both for giving yourself the grace, because that's what really is needed in this entire thing.
Oh, it is. And Kim, you've been dealing with this a little bit too. Maybe one of the things you talked about when we were getting ready for this episode was both you and I have experienced watching coworkers we consider friends, like close friends, go through burnout. And that is so hard to see people you love. One of my coworkers I worked with, I really cared for her, and she was having a hard time in her personal life, and she was showing up like, "Hi, I'm here." And I'm like, "Baby girl, you don't have to be. You could be anywhere else other than here." And you've dealt with that as well, Kim.
It is, and it was so really hard to see you go through your challenges at your previous job and struggle with that, and a couple businesses, couple things going on, and it's tough when you see they're all small companies, so we're small teams, and it's been it's hard to see someone you work with and you care about. You can start to see those signings where they come in, they turn on the Zoom and you look at it like, I feel like you're a day 5 of the, I haven't showered or done anything but wake up, work, and then crash at 10 o'clock at night. And that's just brutal. And you want to jump in and you want to help them out. But what do you do? How can we help?
It's like a double-edged sword, right? Like in this conversation, it's like, how can you help and also take care of yourself? Because you also don't want to be a container for someone else's exhaustion and burnout while you are going through your own things.
Yeah, it's not possible.
It's impossible. So one of the very first things that I always recommend to people that I started with on my personal journey is understanding your pattern and understanding where you are in your journey. And it's hard to say that, right? Like, it's hard to give someone that advice of like, oh, you should go check on yourself, right? And it's all about the communication and like how you communicate it to that person, right? So that's what I would say. It's like thinking about, I am going to validate you, but I am not going to validate you in such a way that it becomes a codependency, right? Because it's that. So I have this quiz on my site. It's called the "What Kind of Leader Are You Really?" quiz. And I definitely recommend that for people, to push people in that direction of like understanding your patterns, right? So it'll let you know whether you're in a martyr pattern, right? Like whether you're in a chaos pattern. And the beautiful thing about these books that I've created that's attached to these quizzes, it supports you individually and it supports you with your team in terms of delegation and things like that. So like I said, the first thing I would recommend is, thinking about how you communicate to that person around the burnout. So something like that would be, some role play, right? Oh, I am definitely struggling and I can't do this today. And you would say, like, if I'm the person responding, are you sure? Like you did it before, Kate. Are you sure this is how you want to show up to work today?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Maybe you should step away and take some time off. And if you are in a position of leadership, you should be doing a capacity checking with your team weekly, right? To understand what's your team's capacity or the person's capacity on your team. And then in that conversation, right, you can recommend them stepping away, right? And also offering them the resource. And it's on them to take it from there with the resource, but not making yourself an open container for dumping.
That's really wise advice. It's hard to hear, but it's healthy because if it's somebody you really care about, you're like, oh, I want to help you. Here, take some of my life force, and you almost want to do that if you really care about them. But I can see that's not healthy for you, and it's not going to help them, is it?
I had a therapist help me move through like making the choice to leave the toxic environment that I was in. And one of the things we talked about together that really stuck with me, she said, one of the hardest things to do in your life is to watch somebody that you love go through something difficult that you cannot change. Like the hardest thing to do is to watch someone you love suffer. And like even setting the boundary can feel hard to do because it's already a hard thing to do to just witness someone else suffering. And I think it's so interesting with what you're talking about, Norlander. Like it can feel more comfortable. It can feel easier to be like, I'll take it all on. I'll do all this stuff. It feels uncomfortable to say, I will witness your suffering and I want to validate that it's not necessary and I want a better path for you.
Yeah. And I think it's understanding the difference between empathy and compassion,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, empathy is like legitimately, I can empathize with your situation, right? And like compassion means I am going to extend and give you an olive branch and give you a pathway to go. But you cannot sit too long in either empathy or compassion because it means that you'll be standing in the rain or, drowning with this person. And you don't want to do that. It's kind of like the airplane analogy, right? They always tell you put your mask on first.
Yeah.
And then support someone else. And that is the only way that those things are possible, right? So that you can continue to be empathetic and give compassion without, over the overextension of yourself.
Yeah. One of my favorite things that you said was that burnout starts at the top. Whenever we started talking about how do you prevent burnout, you were like, it starts at the top. And I'd just love to hear you talk a bit about that because that resonated so deeply for me.
I mean, this is from the organizational perspective, but we can also talk about it from the personal and the individual perspective as well. So I'm going to talk about it from the organizational perspective. So for me, when I say, and I always say this, which is burnout is a collective conversation, especially when it comes to in an organization. And here's why I say that. When you have a team, right? The responsibility, right, of the culture of your team and how your team functions is on leadership. And what I will say is change is most instructive, right, when it comes from leadership down. So if you are actually burnt out, you are definitely rippling that or modeling that for your team. So if a leader works 100 hours, he expects his team to work 150 hours. It's an assumption, right? Because if you're paying someone, you expect them to work harder than you. At least that's the capitalistic way of America, right?
Yeah.
And, if you are exhausted, chances are your team is exhausted. And that's why I said earlier, having capacity check-ins with your team, having capacity check-ins with yourself. And capacity check-ins can look like red pen meetings, where you sit there and you talk to them about like what's happening for them, or actually delegating to your team, making sure that they too delegate to the people below them. And that's what I mean when I say it's a trickle down effect, right? Because you also have to think about it in the personal way, right? For me, I know that and it's something small that I want to share with, is like, I know for me, and I said that my burnout started from childhood, right?
Mm.
I was pre-med. I was pre-med in college. I was a neuroscience minor and a psychology major in college. And the reason I was doing all of that was to be a people pleaser to my father, who's a doctor, because I wanted him to acknowledge me. I wanted him to show up. And then I ended up being a people pleaser in my job, creating codependent relationship, because now I'm like, okay, I am realizing my worth is wrapped up in like excellence and competence and all of these things. And it's not until I had a coach, I had a therapist have that conversation with me about like, look, it's okay to not be perfect. It's okay to have the conversations with your team and have your team not be perfect. It's okay to let a deadline slip or push a deadline out, right? You have agency here. And that is what I mean when I say it trickles from the top down.
Something I've sort of wondered is if someone is in a job, and whatever the situation is, if they get profoundly burnt out, is there recovery in that job? Because what I think of is, I think if you get to that point, you can take time off, you can, talk to a therapist, you can change up a little bit of your job responsibilities, take some off, get some work reasonable hours. You can do all these things, but is there coming back from that? Is that always going to be a trigger for you? Or if you get profoundly burnt out, is it just going to be cleaner and easier to say, I just got to change my scene, man. I got to find another place. I got to find another job and new people. And I just got to do that. What are your thoughts on that?
So if it's profound burnout and everything triggers you at that job, yes, it's time to leave. It is time to go. And like, it's not okay for your nervous system. It's not okay for your heart, your cortisol. Like if we were to get into the science of this, right, you are taking significant years off of your life, right? And significant time away from your family. A lot of people in corporate have children, right? I haven't had the pleasure to be a mother yet or have a family yet. Right? So it is now that conversation of like, do I want to be here for my family, right? Beyond being here for myself, because when you're a people pleaser, you want to be here for other people, right? So like having that conversation with yourself of like, absolutely not. I am here functioning outside of my job description. I am here, over functioning in my family. What am I going to choose? And you should absolutely choose yourself. Absolutely. And it is okay to choose yourself. And some of the things that I see, especially with women and mothers that show up at the job, they're mothering grown adults. And you should absolutely not do that. You should absolutely choose yourself and create an exit plan, right? And like talk to your husband about that. Talk to your family about what that can legitimately look like for you to absolutely take some time off even from your family. Tap into your support system. It is absolutely okay to ask for help, right? And a lot of, women, I'm not saying also men, I'm a woman, right? I'm speaking from a woman's perspective, but men too, right? Have that conversation with your wife about, okay, I'm absolutely burnt out at work. I am absolutely burnt out at home. How can we tap into our support system or the support system of the general community, right, to help us get the support we need so that we can be here?
I know for me that where I was at, I had gone through 4 different managers in a year, and I had shifting responsibilities all the time. And they were never able to define success criteria, or if they did, they moved the goalposts. I recently saw somebody talking, it was a great comment on TikTok somewhere, but somebody said, at this point, the goalposts are on wheels.
Oh, every time.
I was like, that was me. Like, it didn't matter what I did. It didn't matter what I said. It didn't matter how I communicated, what I was working on. A very helpful senior leader at that company, So there was a VP that I worked with, and I could never make him happy. I went into one meeting with him, and I brought a schedule, and he blew up at me and said, "Well, that's not the schedule we need." And the schedule, guys, the schedule was design, build, deliver. We're not talking rocket science when it comes to schedules. It was the basics. I was like, we're going to design it. We're going to build it. We're going to test it. We're going to launch it. The basics, babe. And he was furious. And then he added a bunch of things there's no way I could have known, which included wanting to include the CPO of the company on the decision of my middle manager team's project, to which, why would I have ever imagined the CPO would care about that? That doesn't make any sense to me. So he added in this requirement that I didn't understand, but I was like, great, thanks for saying that. We'll add that in. He was like, take this back. I met with another, notably a woman who reported to him, and I was like, can you help me with this? Because she seemed to manage him the best. And she said to me, I think you're 80% of the way there. I don't know what's going on with him. And I was like, okay. I went to my manager who reported to him, and I said, I'm struggling managing up. Can you help me do this? He was like, you just have to manage up. And I was like, sir, what I'm telling you is that I know how to manage up, and I have run out of tools. And one of them is but I will say one of the tools is leveraging you, my boss, to manage your boss, because that's what you are paid to do. Oosh, I did not come at him with that energy, but I almost did. Because I was just losing it, because a part of me was screaming at myself, like, this isn't normal. And another part of me was like, but you're trash unless you figure this out. And it was a miserable space to be in. And when I think about myself in that role, there's just no way I could have stayed with, at least with those people in charge, at least with those requirements. And, my team would have seen me, and I did my best to not take this out on my team. But there's no way they didn't notice how exhausted I was, how torn down I was. There would have been rebuilding that relationship and reshifting the perspective of me. It would have been so much work to come back from that, which honestly is energy I would have rather spent on myself, learning how to be happy again and learning to believe that I'm not garbage again. Like that, where do I want to put that energy? Put that into redefining how other people see me at work after I've had a rough year, where some of those things I can't come back from? Or would I rather put that energy into myself, my relationship with my wife, who was exhausted at that point? Like, she'd been supporting me being super depressed for a year, and people, and we'll be happily married for 10 years next month. And so we've been through a lot together. But anybody who's been married for that amount of time or longer knows that things go up and down, but downs got to come back up. And so where did I want to put that energy? I wanted to put it in places where I was being fully supported to be able to do that. Otherwise, there's, to your point, Norlander, we're taking years off my life so that I can make people who just genuinely, really, truly not part of my community, don't care about me. I'm not really impacting their life. You know what I mean? I don't want to give that to them. I want to give it to me. It was the ultimate choice I had to make.
Yeah. And I feel like, as operators, as project managers, we are programmed to people please, right? That is why we've gotten into the role. We just want to get the work done.
What do you want done? I'd love to get that done for you. Tell me what would make you happy. Of course I can.
Yes, right. And we're programmed in this way to absolutely get it done. But, that absolutely works against us, especially in narcissistic cultures, right? And if I think something a lot of us in general in society we need to work on is spotting narcissistic leaders. Right. And narcissistic workplace cultures, because if the leadership is narcissistic, the culture is absolutely narcissistic. And not necessarily all of the people in it. Right. We're just talking about the container. And what tends to happen is we know that narcissistic leaders, they will absolutely move the goalposts. They will absolutely create chaos for you. They will absolutely make a mess of things and then blame it. They will blame shift and blame it on other people and things of that nature. And for me, I know in my experience, being in that, it's literally psychological warfare.
It is.
You cannot win.
Yeah.
All right. And the best thing you can do, like Kim said, is absolutely leave and lean on your community. Listen, honey, it's going to be tight next month. Okay. It's going to be tight. We're going on a budget, but I cannot stay here. I got to look for work. I know it's hard in the economy. We might have to DoorDash a little bit, but I got to go.
Yeah. I took a gigantic pay cut to leave, but I'm so much happier. I wouldn't have gone to the Beyonce concert if I had not quit my job. I would have been like, no one there likes me, which was stupid. Like, that's a stupid thing to say to yourself about like whatever a place filled with joy where you're just enjoying yourself. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
but I would have been carrying that negative story to anything I wanted to do.
Yeah. And it's absolutely okay for other people to not like you. You
Mm-hmm.
should be okay with you. Your wife loves you. Your husband loves you. And like, I think that's how I approach life now. It's like, I am not here to be liked by everyone. If I'm going into a workplace, into a job, into a contract, I'm here to do the job, right? It does not matter to me whether or not you like me or not. Do you like this work? Okay. Do
Yeah,
you like what I am producing?
absolutely.
And it doesn't have to be about anything else.
Ah, I love that. One of the things that you talked about with burnout was that like there's two sides of it. There's burnout prevention and burnout recovery that both have to happen, I think, within an organization. Can you just shed a little bit more light on that for us?
Right. So I'll talk about it from the entrepreneurial perspective and the organizational perspective. So for the organizational perspective, I feel for me, in terms of burnout prevention, is as leaders, right? Because I've sat in a COO position before. And for me, what I found to be very helpful is constantly, at least once a quarter, auditing our systems, auditing your SOPs, right? And what that looks like is looking at your SOPs to see the gaps, looking at it from a new lens to see, well, why did these things break down, right? How can we make these things better? And what tech stack, what from within our tech stack can we absolutely leverage to support our teams in a different way to help prevent burnout? The other thing is thinking about sustainable pacing, right? And I mentioned this before. I think I mentioned it a couple times in this conversation, is absolutely shifting from that, oh, let me check in with my team, to having capacity check-ins. Capacity check-ins look like, oh, you know what? What do you have on your plate?
Mm,
Have you done a time audit on yourself? I am not checking to see whether or not you did the work or trying to fire you, because what tends to happen is when teams do time audits, right, they tend to be fearful. It triggers them, right? About like,
mm,
oh, am I doing my job? Are you going to fire me? No, communicate. This is a capacity check-in. And I'm checking to see if like burnout is happening for you,
mm.
right? And like what is happening at home. It's like shifting the perspective from just productivity to human-centered first leadership, right? Because we're all leaders, we're leading ourselves, right? And some of us are leading teams, and understanding whether or not, oh, what is happening for you in life, at home, and at work, that we can shift the timeline on things if it is shiftable, or we can utilize the tech stack. Another thing is, for the entrepreneurial perspective, for project managers, thinking about scope creep, right? Understanding your SOPs as a project manager, and at least building in boundaries within your own SOPs so that the system itself can say no for you before you have to say no. That protects your peace, and it also protects your business, right? And I think for me, those are the things when we talk about prevention, at least from an organizational and an entrepreneurial perspective, it's that. And also, I think in terms of prevention, when you think about the boundaries, building in, and this is going to sound a little bit fluffy, but building in peace moments for yourself, right? Not just the regular scan breaks, but like putting your rest on the calendar, like putting your family time on the calendar. I know it sounds rigid,
Mm-hmm.
but like we're a community, but like build it in.
One of the things I've learned for myself, and I did learn this while I was at my last job, was that I have a riding lesson. I have a horse I ride. I ride dressage like a little nerd. So I have a lesson at 4:30 on Tuesdays. I love my instructor. She's incredible. I've come so far with her. It's really exciting. And a couple years ago, there was some leadership meeting that needed to happen at 4 p.m. that day. And I told myself, my career matters. I need to be at this meeting. And I was ready to go. And I made the tough decision to like push my riding lesson, like not go that week. And then, the people who put that meeting on my calendar canceled it. like 30 minutes beforehand. No notice, no reason. Somebody else couldn't make it. And I was furious. Like, they did not care that I pushed a major personal life commitment in order to go to this meeting that was, I think it was probably prep for like a board call or something like that. And don't get me wrong, those are important, but no one else respected my time. And so the rough lesson I learned is the only person that can respect your time is yourself. So I don't move anything in my life for my writing lesson on Tuesdays. I block my calendar off at 2:30 because, I'm bad at ending on time. So I give myself plenty of buffer time to end beforehand. And then if somebody's like, oh, like for Tuesday, I'm like, till 2:30. That's when I'm available. And if I don't go ride, and if I don't get the joy that I get in particular out of the extra help from a lesson with my coach, my week kind of sucks. And so I prioritize that time. And for other folks, that might be, your Wednesday night dance lessons with your daughter, or a book club that you go to, or a gaming session that you have. But like, you cannot let those and I think that is a version of rest. There's many versions of rest. There's yourself taking your time for your peace. There's also time to connect with your community, and there's time to connect with your body. That's really big for me with writing. And that is probably the best time I've protected on my calendar. And I would challenge our listeners, for all of our busy folks out there, if you don't have time that you protect for yourself on your calendar, let that be a takeaway for you today, that you have something that's as sacred as that for you on your calendar.
Yeah. So I was at a kind of a founders retreat last week, and they brought in this speaker. His name is Greg McKeown, and he's actually an academic speaker, author, and he spent a couple hours with us. It was amazing. And he wrote this book called Essentialism, which I'm dove in because the whole story is you're doing too many things. You need to focus on what's essential, which kind of relates to this. But in this book, it has a story up front, which your story just reminded me of, Kate, where he was in the hospital. His wife was in labor. His boss called him up, says he got this critical customer call. And he knew he had this critical customer call, and he thought, I got to take this stupid critical customer call. So he stepped out.
He left his wife in labor to go take a call?
The critical customer call, because he thought he had to do it. His boss was making him do it. Got on the call with the customer, and although he didn't say the words, what I kind of inferred was the customer basically, what the frick are you doing talking to me?
Mm-hmm. Good customer, better than the boss.
Yeah, better than the boss. Yeah.
That is the point, I think, Norlander, that you're making with, it starts from the top. Having a boss or a manager who thinks that it is that when your family is in the hospital going through, like giving birth is one of the hardest things a person with a uterus can do in their life. You don't want to, I would not abandon my partner in the hospital. That's nonsense. But that if your boss, I guess your boss would do that too in that situation. Ugh, that's awful. Terrible leadership. Horrible.
Yeah. And for me, I don't holistically blame leaders, right? Because they're people too, right? It's the capitalistic machine, right? And they don't know what they don't know, right? I am not here to bash anyone, but is legitimately, I am here to reintroduce a different type of conversation. Leaders absolutely check in on your strong teams, right? Because this is why you're struggling with retention. Because I'm sure that book that you're reading, did he leave? Did he leave that job? Him.
Definitely, yeah.
Right?
He cites that as a painful lesson learned. But yeah, he's since very much moved on.
So he absolutely left, right? Retention lessons, right? Especially for organizational leaders. It's you can absolutely redistribute the workload. You can legitimately create a different level of trust within your team by redistributing the workload and having somebody else take that on for a team member who's going through this beautiful but hard thing. Because on a side note, I have a friend who's a doula, and she talks about, fathers going through birth with their wives. They go through that too. Psychologically, there's something happening for them there too, right? And we've had this whole push, right, for fathers to have maternity leave. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So in that way, I'm just see people as humans first, leaders second, and have those difficult conversations. People frown, at least as staff and managers frown on exit interviews, but I always implore people to do the exit interviews prayerfully the managers and the CEOs and the C-suites are looking at these exit interviews to understand what psychologically broke people for them to absolutely leave. Because it's a tough conversation to have, right? But it absolutely needs to be had.
Oof, powerful stories and time. But another thing you've touched on as we've kind of gone through this, Norlander, I mean, earlier you talked about, in particular, women like parenting people that they work with or like taking on even more than their own job. And those are some of my things that you've talked about. Can you talk a little bit more about like one of the things that kind of leads to burnout is taking on all of this and like strategies to deal with that?
Yeah. So what I'll say is a lot of times I know I mentioned earlier with women, like you mentioned, that women take on a lot. And we take on those things because we are natural born nurturers. But it's almost to the point where it's expected, right? Like it's expected for us to nurture this community, right? And one of the definite things I talk to, and I'm not just going to bring it into gender only, but people who are very empathetic, right?
Yeah.
Which is you mothering or parenting adults. You're not responsible, right, for managing your manager. You're responsible for managing your staff, but not parenting them. You are not responsible for calling them and waking them up and getting them to work.
Mm-hmm.
They're adults. They applied for the job. They absolutely should show up and show up appropriately.
Yeah.
Right? You show up to work late, I give you a warning. We have the hard conversation and it should end there, right? Or escalate there, whichever. But absolutely, the way how you protect your peace, especially in managing or director roles, is absolutely stop parenting these grown adults, right? Or give your manager back his job. Your manager is the person who is supposed to have that hard conversation with staff about them not just showing up late or not showing up to work at all. It is not your responsibility to do that. You are not an emotional container. With my clients, I always have that conversation with them. The reason why you're so burned out is because you want everything to work. You're being so kind. You want everything to work, and you want you to work too, right? You got up. You brought yourself to work. Why couldn't they get up and bring themselves to work?
I think the thing here, especially from a project management standpoint, is I think it's really easy to think, I have to get everybody to do their job because I am the one accountable for getting the project done. So I have to go, and whether we use the word mothering, parent, babysit, any of those synonyms, right?
Yeah.
To be like, I'm going to go do everything in my power to make sure this gets done. Except that like everything in your power is beyond your job description. And, when we get into babysitting and mothering, and I know I have given some of that advice at times on this podcast because it can be an effective way to get things done. But if the only way that you're operating is to say, it's my job to make sure that you get your deliverable done, you do your status report, you put the things in there, you come talk to me about them, and then I go talk to you. And then, I just got to go do my Friday check-in with Sarah because she's incapable of writing a status report, and then, if I don't go talk to Sarah, then she's not going to go deliver this thing. And that's too much. You're over functioning.
Yeah. Small story time. So I'm literally in a similar situation right now, right? And I'll tell you how I set the boundary. So currently there's a deliverable that needs to happen. It was supposed to happen, I think, in July. We've been waiting for this about 2 months, 2 to 3 months.
Woof.
Listen, I'm going to let the system talk for me. I've spoken to you a few times, right? Let's have the conversation about what is going to be lost if the deliverable is not met, right? Let's have the conversation. Is it $3,200? Is it $40,000? Is it, the loss of relationship, right? Is it you going to get fired? Whatever it is, I understand that I am responsible for getting the deliverable done, and I am not going to go above and beyond where I can't, right? I am human just like you. So let's have a conversation. And for me, I document things, right? I am that type of operations person. So I do what's within my locus of control, right? And that's exactly what I did. I completed my part of the deliverable. And then I say, okay, my part of the deliverable is done. Where do we go from here? right? Sarah, you didn't do your part of the deliverable. Okay, let's talk about what is going to be lost as a result of, and let the dominoes fall where they may, right? If you're trying to continue the relationship with the client because you're the manager, you're in the middle, you mitigate, right? Put somebody else in place. Sarah, you're done. You're done.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so sorry. It didn't work out. Sounds like we need John to come up in here and get it done and have the conversation with John about what a pay would look like, what his capacity should look like, because legitimately, I am not going to sacrifice myself, my family, my time for you to play with me like that.
I think it might have been on our initial call that we had, but Kate said a phrase. She says, sometimes you got to let it burn.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that inspired me so much. The Arizona PM Summit was a virtual conference. It was here in Phoenix. They asked me to do a little talk, and that phrase kept knocking around in my head. And so
You got to let things break. That's what I say. Sometimes you got to let stuff break.
Okay.
You got to let it break. Yeah.
I remembered it as you got to let it burn a little bit.
I love it. That sounds even more dramatic.
And what you're talking about Nolan, really hits home, because one of the, as we talked through this kind of workshop, one of the things we talked about was the fact that, you got the concept of a helicopter mom.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You can't be a helicopter PM. You can't do that. You got to let people learn their lessons. And sometimes it's got to burn a little bit for them to learn it.
Yeah. And I think what I had to learn, at least, and I don't know if this is true for everyone, I know, but part of my journey has been learning to sit with the discomfort of other people failing.
Oh, that gets me right here.
Let them fail. There's growth in failure.
There is.
I'll absolutely allow people to fail forward.
Yes. There is a line in, what is that called? It was the Agatha All Along. And it was a very powerful scene. Shashir Zamata is realizing something terrible that's happened to her. And Agatha says, don't steal her struggle. And I'm like, yeah, like Kim and I would not be the project managers that we are if we had not gone through the failures that we have. Like, the point of the podcast is to help you if you run into some sort of failure. But at the same time, you're probably here because you have, and you're looking for other ways to go through that. But so many people don't believe or understand
The power of failing.
Yeah. And I think that the wisdom that the three of us all share in the things that we've done before, the ways we've hurt ourselves before, seen things go badly, that wisdom is hard earned, right? To go back to what's the business lesson you learned the hard way. But there's no way for you to take on, like, a true parent who's good at their job understands they can't helicopter parent. They have to let their kid trip and fall. They have to let their kid try the thing. No parent wants to watch their kid fucking burn their hand on the stove.
Yeah.
But certainly is a lesson learned if they won't stop and, like, they're not going to do it again. And the same thing has to happen at work. You can't protect everybody, and you're wasting your time protecting other people when you could be protecting yourself.
Yeah. After you've given the advice, after you've done the things, you've done the necessary steps, at least what you deem the necessary steps, absolutely allow them to fail. Like, absolutely give them the opportunity to grow from their own failures. Because some people, they want a witness. They don't want a savior. They want you to witness them do their thing.
Yeah.
So go ahead, do your thing.
Mm-hmm. Just to be received in that moment, right? That you're going through a hard thing. Yeah, that's a big one for me. I like when other people start to solution for me, it's like, I didn't ask you for your opinion. I didn't ask you how to solve this.
You're right. You know what? I can be a great sounding board.
Mm-hmm.
And a good question I love to ask my friends, and they'll tell you, how would you like to be supported?
You want solutions? Do you want comfort? Right? You could pick from a menu.
You know, exactly. And I'm going to tell you what I absolutely can do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? This is what I can do. This is what I can't do. And you get to choose. They're like, come on. No, I'm going to force you to choose.
So when it comes to project management and burnout, it just feels like a position that's primed for getting stuck in that train of thought where you feel like you just have to carry everyone. And a lot of my coaching lately has revolved around strengthening your ability to sit with discomfort, trusting that something like silence during a call doesn't necessarily mean that you are doing a bad job. If other folks are checked out on a call and not listening, that is their fault. There's ways to engage them. There's a multitude of ways to do that, but ultimately understanding that, it's your job to shepherd the work getting done. It's not your job to truly own end-to-end every single thing that happens. Because if nobody else shows up, like you cannot be the person doing the group project by yourself. Other people have to show up, and it's a group grade. They have other bosses on it. Like, you can get individual grades on this too.
So, we're hard workers, right? Doing hard jobs. How do we differentiate that from burnout? Like, what are some signals that we can look for in ourselves, maybe others, but certainly in ourselves, to start identifying, might I be in trouble if kind of statements?
Yeah. So Kate mentioned it earlier. If we were all paying attention, you start snapping at people. Because like I asked you to borrow a pen and you're like, pen.
I guess I'm the pen factory now. Sure.
And that happened to me too, at least with members of my team. Like they would ask me a question and what I leaned into in those conversations with my team was allowing them to say to me, like, I feel like you're dismissing me, right? Like I feel like I can't ask you questions. And I'm like, immediately became defensive. And that's another thing you should also look for is like your heightened defensiveness. It's like somebody's offering you constructive criticism and your immediate response is defensive. I just did my job. I'm doing my job. I think those are like two signs to absolutely look for. That means that you're in trouble here. Another thing that you should absolutely look for is the constant asking of favors, right? So here's what I mean when I say that. Something falls off somebody else's plate and you are the very first person they come to pick up the slack. Every single time. You are in trouble because that means you've always picked up the slack. And then it now becomes an expectation for you to pick up the slack. No. When you notice that, paying attention to that, there absolutely needs to be a conversation from you, the individual. Oh, my capacity is this. What are you taking off my plate for me to do this? Or it would absolutely be, what does pay scale look like? Do you not have the money to pay me? So then the answer is no, I can't. You need to hire somebody else, right? I'm not here to do you any favors. Are you doing me any favors by putting some extra in my pay? No, you're not, right? The other thing to look for, I would also say, is isolation. A lot of leaders since the pandemic made it worse. Like you continuously siloing within the organization, right? Leaders can absolutely self-silo because they're in this creative bubble, right? Kate said it earlier. She was like, I am in this creative bubble and I got to get it done. And I look up, it's been 5 hours. I have not spoken to anyone. And like, I could have delegated parts of this hours ago.
Yeah.
So those are the things I would say, you can look for within yourself intrinsically to support yourself in transitioning.
I mean, guilty of all of those for me and my burnout. Another one that we talked about before that was a big thing for me, I was getting weekly miserable migraines. I had terrible physical body pain as part of my burnout. I do have a chronic pain condition that I manage. Shout out to any trigeminal neuralgia cuties out there in the world. But the drug I used to help treat that, I was getting that refilled like monthly whenever I was working at the job that was burning me out. And I've refilled my prescription for the first time this year and it is September. So like the difference in the amount of like pain, and Kim knows, I mean, we canceled recordings because of migraines. Like I have like migraines are one of my like chronic problems and it is so much easier to manage now. And so it's, I'm cured, doc. I quit my job. Is what I tend to say,
A book I recommend that people read is, I don't know if you guys have heard of it, The Body Keeps the Score.
Yeah, I've heard that one.
That book is such a powerful book. So I definitely always encourage people to read that book because that's what ultimately happens when you don't take care of yourself and you put other people first, is your body will absolutely keep the score.
Yeah.
And we're talking about burnout recovery, but like sometimes you can recover, right? Sometimes you can absolutely go to the gym and spend time with your family. And sometimes you can't recover. Some people get strokes. Some people aren't here anymore.
Yeah.
They're unalived at their desk, right? So like taking care of yourself is really, really very important.
I've had 3 of my friends pass away this year, and they're from my age, so that certainly hits home. One of the things that you had, I think you'd mentioned before, was something subtle but important, was shifts in the way that you speak to yourself, the rhetoric.
Yeah.
From, I get to do this, to, I don't want to be here. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So this is just in terms of like self-awareness. For me, 3 years ago, I didn't have values. right? I didn't know what it felt like to absolutely put values on my self-worth, on my family's self-worth. And like what tends to happen is, not having those values, you absolutely cloud your own judgment. And what happens is you start having these ruminating conversations with yourself
Oh, yeah.
about not being here anymore. And 2 3 years ago, 2023, even though I had been doing the work for years before that, I definitely would say back then, I'm kind of getting emotional thinking about it, which is, I would wake up and I would say, I woke up today sad.
Oof. Those are hard spaces to be in. It's awful whenever you're stuck in that like trough of like, ugh.
Yeah.
Oh.
And having those ruminating conversations with yourself at 3 o'clock in the morning of like, okay, how do I leave? How do I get out of this? Because eventually what happens is it's not 3 o'clock in the morning anymore, but it's 9 a.m. and you're still having that conversation. You're at your desk and you're still thinking about that. Right. And for me, how I got out of that is I started having meditative time for myself, journaling time for myself. Kate said it, right? She puts those non-negotiables on her calendar. For me, I don't start work until 10:30. I wake up at 6. From 6 to 10 is mine.
Nice.
From 5 o'clock until the next morning is mine, right? Fridays, I do not work past 12. I work for 2 hours on a Friday, but I absolutely wake up in the morning and I meditate. I absolutely wake up in the morning and I journal and I have those reflective conversations with myself out loud because it's absolutely important to talk to yourself and talk to your family or have conversations with my mom because she too has gone through her own levels of burnout. Your family is going through this stuff with you. They're watching you go through this stuff. And it's absolutely important for you to have those conversations with them.
I personally am getting a lot more appreciation for the importance of that kind of self-talk or what do you tell yourself? And I want to look up the study and get a copy of it. But I've seen references and heard references of the study a couple times. And it's that these scientists studied rats as they often do. And these rats, they love their wheel. They get on a little wheel, they run around the wheel, they love the wheel, they're on it for hours a day, they're healthy, they're happy, they're running on the wheel, it's great. And they see how many hours per day they run on the wheel. Then the scientists go to another group of mice or rats and they force them to be on the wheel, to do the same thing, same amount of work, same amount of hours per day, but they're forced to. It's not their choice. It's not, I get to run on the wheel, it's you have to run on the wheel. And these mice, they had super high stress hormones. They physically degraded, they got sick, and they died early.
Yeah.
So now I've got this phrase keeps going around my head. Am I the mouse that chooses? Or am I the mouse that's forced? Am I the mouse? I want to be the mouse that chooses, I think, on this.
Yeah. So whenever I quit my job last year, one of the decisions I made was I am only going to work with people who are dying to work with me, who are reaching out and like want this to work and are excited about me. Like I am over proving myself to people. I'm doing training for a corporation and I'm helping them on how they're presenting and telling the stories of their work, like the project value. And I did a single sales call on it and I emailed them the proposal. Like I did the sales call, lots of active listening. I said, I said, okay, here's what you want. Here's what you want. One of my skills definitely is like really understanding what folks are after. Wrote it all out, emailed them. I was like, if you want to do this, that sounds great. If not, no worries. Like I'm not begging anybody for anything ever again. I'm over that. I'm great at my job. I have almost 2 decades of experience to prove that. I mean, I quit my job last year, went on to help like in an industry I've never worked in, went on to help a creator have a $500,000 Black Friday just on TikTok alone. It was like $1 million overall. I mean, it was a wildly successful end of the year. And I know I directly contributed to that. And it was amazing. And on top of that, another thing I did, I had a friend reach out and offer me a job. I had to interview. I interviewed for the job. Everybody loved me. It was for another big corporation. And I negotiated, I'm going to say this out loud. I negotiated a nearly $500,000 a year package and I turned it down because I walked through the building and I said, I feel gross.
Okay.
I feel like I'm back in that office. I feel sad. I feel heavy. I
Mhm.
feel awful. That is an insane amount of money to turn down. It included packages and things like that would have been conditional on me staying there for, a certain amount of time. I didn't want to do that. It made me feel too bad. Like the only way that I was able to get through this was to make some dramatic choices. But I'm so much happier. I have so much more energy. I feel so much lighter. I have way less migraines. But it included making dramatic choices in my life. But in many ways, Kim, I feel like I am choosing when I get on that wheel. But I don't got to prove to anybody. Some scientist isn't saying, here's your cheese. I'm like, I don't care about your cheese. You could offer me the nicest cheese you have. I'm not getting on that wheel unless I want to get on that wheel.
You're the mouse who chooses.
I'm trying to be.
You're the mouse who chooses because you understand your values and your worth.
Yeah.
I know these are my values and it's non-negotiable.
Yeah, I think that's huge.
When I hear you say you turned down $500,000, I mean, well,
That's insane.
I don't know if it's insane. I think it's a powerful indicator to people that your life is worth more than
It is.
money. Your happiness is worth more than money. Yes, money contributes to your happiness overall. And right, you get to choose what's for you and what's not for you. And I think it's really powerful for your listeners to hear.
One of the things that resonated with me about your content, because so much of who you're talking to is Black women. And I just so appreciated the way that you were like, don't apologize for who you are. Like, don't accept them talking down to you and don't turn those thoughts or those behaviors into your own.
Yeah.
And something I resonated with is like, I'm a neurodivergent person and like the world struggles with people that don't just fall into their boxes for them, and I feel like folks that are exceptional really fall into those buckets where it's easy to succumb to burnout because you constantly feel like you are proving who you are over and over again. And that is like I could get emotional talking about that. That's an exhausting thing. And I'm like, nobody deserves to have a work environment like that. Makes me furious. But like, that was one of the things I loved about what you said is how to just be yourself and embrace those moments. And I wish that we lived in a world where like we truly were all embraced for these differences that we have. I think they make us so much stronger. But the way that I know my experience was so much because like I was excellent at my job and it made a lot of people uncomfortable. And it sucks to be excellent at your job and to make people uncomfortable. And if you come from a particular background, they don't like how you show up whenever you're excellent. And that just adds this whole layer to things that I feel like is a big part of the burnout conversation that gets talked about sometimes. But that's part of why I've made this choice for me. It's like, I would have to shrink who I was to go back and do that big corporate job. I'd have to shrink. I don't want to shrink. I don't think you should shrink. I don't think anyone should have to shrink who they are. But it does come with financial consequences. I'm not making $500,000 a year doing this with what I'm doing now. Some folks are like, I turned down $500,000 a year and then I became a bajillionaire. And I'm like, I didn't. Like, that's not always the story. I could in years to come, but like, that's not the immediate story. The immediate story is just like being happy again, which is nice. And then seeing where this will take me.
Typically what happens when you're excellent at your job, you become a mirror for people who are insecure about themselves.
Say it louder. Say it louder.
I say this to my friends a lot and I say it to my clients a lot. And that is absolutely okay. You should not have to. So I'll give you a prime example for me. 4 years ago, I went to my coach and I said to her, I was like, how do I slow down to match the pace of my team? And she said, why would you want to do that? You don't do that.
It would make everybody more comfortable, though. That's a thought that would run through my mind.
Right. And what she said was, oh, no, you create systems for them to catch up.
I love that.
Okay. And so, my coach's name is Marie DeVoe, shameless plug.
We love a great coach.
And that really made things look differently for me because it allowed me to rest differently. Right. So, you don't know how to do this system. I am legitimately going to build or build into our SOP a process that you can now go learn, and I'll email you that process if you're struggling.
Yeah.
Right. For me, that took a huge weight of, the responsibility of ownership for owning everybody else's growth. And you may not have been monetarily rich, but you became rich in so many other ways. And I think people get accustomed to defining rich with money, and that's the capitalistic nature. But like, you became so rich in other ways. You became rich in time. You became
Mm-hmm.
rich in pouring into your family. Your intrinsic values changed and spending time with your family, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you've deepened relationships with yourself and with others. Like, that's richness too. And that deserves to be talked about.
Yeah. The therapist that I had as I was like moving through this, she loved to call like the current Kate entrepreneur Kate. She would say, what does entrepreneur Kate mean? Like entrepreneur Kate is not the same as this like corporate Kate. Corporate Kate, believe different things, acted different ways. Entrepreneur Kate isn't subject to those rules. Entrepreneur Kate gets to live in this new way. I think when you're sitting in money richness, it's really hard to accept the idea that life richness has value because you're so sad. How could life be good? Because you're stuck in this depressed, like shut down place. So that was big for me. I did not believe it at the time, but I think I had my partner was like, "You can't do this anymore," and I was like, "Okay." It was enough support for me to make the choice.
Yeah, to your point, scarcity really plays a huge role in like how we absolutely engage with the world and like what we receive and how we're being treated, because we've been programmed that way, right? I talked about my childhood. Like, my mother was like that, right? Okay, I'm just gonna take this job to feed the family. But you tired. You fell down the
Mm-hmm.
steps. You almost broke your foot. You about to go to work? It's things like that, right? Like, it's really, scarcity really impacts how we see things. And a lot of conversation that I have in my own program is, disrupting. I'm going to use that word, not interruption, but a disruption of inside of self of
Mm.
like, okay, I need to move from that scarcity mindset, right? Like, what are the things that I need to put in place so that I absolutely can make that shift in a way that doesn't trigger my scarcity? Are my Maslow hierarchy of needs met, right? At the bare minimum, so that I can make that transition and still have a peace of mind. Because I know for me, when I transitioned from a corporate, like, that was really a really important conversation for me to have with my therapist and my coach, which is, what are the things that I need to do to make sure that I am okay and I am not triggered along the way? So hopefully that helps somebody.
Honestly, on the note of your programs, I mean, this has been an incredible conversation. Tell us more, Norlander, about you, where our audience can find you. I mean, I am floored by the work you're doing. I think it's incredible, but I already know about it. So can you tell our audience?
Yes, yes. So what we are promoting right now is our What Kind of Leader Are You Really quiz, which is a pattern quiz. I talked about it a little bit earlier, of like understanding where you are as a leader. And my background is in psychology, but this was also built in tandem with a counselor who helped me think about how people function intrinsically and how can they organizationally support their teams and themselves as they move through these patterns. That's the first thing that we offer. My website is becoma.com. And it means standing firm in wholeness, standing steadfast in wholeness and your humanity and who you are. So you can find us there. You can also find me on my YouTube channel and podcast. It's called She Don't Work Like That No More. So it's very much for people like Kate who, you've gone through this life transformation. And what we do there is have interviews with people who've gone through this transformation, and they're sharing their wisdom, particularly women in the corporate space that have become coaches, that have become successful, and they're turning down these $500,000 contracts to keep their peace of mind.
I know, I feel insane every time I say that. Sorry, thank you.
I absolutely love it. It's such a powerful thing to say and to do and to be rooted in your wholeness, right? It's like, that's the movement. And then we're also promoting right now our strategic dreaming course, right? It's legitimately a course for women who are stuck in corporate America and is looking for a way to exit, but they don't know how. We also have other tools on our site as well. We have like a little chat bot that supports you in creating an exit plan. So use it, use it, use it.
Incredible.
Yeah, we program the full chat bot that helps you have a conversation with it, because I understand, like, financially, people may not be able to afford or know how to have conversations with ChatGPT. It's a different kind of way. And so the chatbot is fully programmed for me, from my voice, from my team, and it helps you create a 90-day exit plan. And then you get to process that conversation with me.
That's a life changer right there.
Yeah. Hopefully people use it.
As I said, you're doing very cool work, and I'm so excited that you exist. I am grateful that the algorithm was like, do you want to know Norlander? I'm like, I do want to know Norlander. I'm so excited. I think she's really cool.
You have no idea. Like I said, I talked about you last week. I think I talked about you earlier this week with my operational manager. I was like, we have to email Kate to get her on the podcast. I think she's one of those people who don't work like that no more. And I
do not.
That conversation needs to happen. So I'm hopeful that right after this, like, we get those emails out next week so we can get on our recording and really, really chop it up and talk about Beyonce.
I'm ready. It's going to be a good one. I'm excited. Yeah. And I have quite the story. I haven't really said that out loud. So, but we'll get into actually wrapping. So Kim, you can take us into giving us the final bit.
Norlander, thank you so much for joining us. This is such an important topic, and just love your insights into how to manage burnout. But as we get to next round, I would like to ask you to propose a virtual toast.
Ooh, oh boy. When you do find your boundary, when you do get there, don't compromise it for anyone.
Cheers to that.
Yeah.
Cheers to that.
Cheers to that. And thank you so much for having me.
And that's our show. Thanks for listening. If you liked our show, please leave a review and a comment on iTunes or wherever you get our podcast. Your review really does mean a lot. And if you want to check out our membership site and all of our cool content there, you can check that out at pmhappyhour.com/membership. If you want to talk to us directly about project management, PM consulting, training, or whatever, our contact info is on our website under About Your Hosts, or you can just hit us up on our Facebook site at PM Happy Hour. You'll find we're really pretty easy to get a hold of there. And that's it for today. Good luck with your projects, and we hope to catch you again at the next PM Happy Hour. Cheers.